Hello. So imagine you're at a birthday party and your friend Bob shows up with this giant gift wrap box. Everyone's really excited, thinking it's something great. But then Bob opens it up and there's nothing inside. He just shrugs and says, "I couldn't afford a gift, but I didn't want to lose face." More or less, that's what happens when a country defaults on its debt. So let's dive into this with our buddy Bob as our guide. Bob lives in a small town called Econoville. He's well known for throwing wild parties, buying the latest gizmos, and always picking up the tab. But here's the thing. Bob's been funding his lifestyle through credit cards. Lots of them. And he's been paying just the minimum payment, hoping his income will someday catch up someday. Then one day, the bills pile up and Bob can no longer keep up the payments. He defaults. His credit rating plunges, his phone rings non-stop with bill collectors, and his reputation in Econoville is hurt. His friends start to avoid him, and local merchants are leery about lending him a thing. When a country defaults, it is essentially saying, "We cannot pay our debts." This sends shockwaves through the global financial system. Investors lose confidence, their credit rating suffers, and it becomes more expensive or even impossible for them to borrow. Take Argentina, for example. Argentina defaulted on $93 billion in debt in 2001. The immediate consequence? A severe recession, skyrocketing unemployment, and widespread social unrest. The peso depreciated significantly, leading to inflation and a steep drop in living standards. But numbers and economics are not everything. The human toll is immense. Jobs are lost, savings are ruined, and essential services like education and health are struck by budget cuts. Back to Bob. After his default, he tries to get back on the rails. He cuts costs, attends financial counseling, and slowly starts to regain the trust of others. Nations can recover from defaults, too, but it takes time, discipline, and sometimes painful austerity. So, what gets a country to this stage? More often than not, it is a mix of overborrowing, weak fiscal management, and external shocks such as financial crises worldwide or the fall in commodity prices. Political instability can worsen the situation, making it more difficult to undertake reforms that are needed. And the ripple effects? They could be global. Investors become anxious, so they reduce capital flows to other emerging markets. International financial institutions might tighten lending standards, and the interconnectivity of economies now means that a default in one country can have implications far and wide. In short, a country's default is not merely a failure to make a payment. It is a complex event with severe economic, social, and political repercussions. Just as Bob's default altered his status in Econoville, a default by a nation can alter its status in the world. But hold on, what actually occurs when a country defaults? Like, what is the real-world version of "we're no longer paying"? Picture Bob telling bank, "Yeah, I'm not going to pay that $20,000 credit card bill. Do what you want." What would the result be? Not good. The bank cancels his card. He incurs penalty charges. The bank may even pursue legal action, and Bob is labeled high risk. When a country defaults, you get to see it play out financially. Credit rating agencies like Moody's, S&P, and Fitch will essentially give that country the adult version of an F on their economic report card, and the country's bonds get downgraded to junk bond status. Investors panic, and the country can no longer borrow money until the interest rates are sky high due to the default risk. Let's introduce Alice, Bob's cousin who loves spreadsheets and saves money. She does not default. In fact, she is so reliable, banks have to fight to lend her money. She gets loans at low interest rates, access to new sources of credit, and everyone in Econoville is eager to let her keep their money as a trusted holder. Financially, investors look at countries the same way. If one country defaults, investors begin to look for the Alices to place their investment dollars. This could mean not just pulling any investments from the defaulting country, but also that nearby countries, especially if investors believe the defaulting country could also lead to a default in neighboring countries. This is called Here's a fun thought. Some countries default not necessarily because they cannot pay their debt, but because they strategically or intentionally won't pay it back. They will default because they think it is better for them strategically. You can imagine Bob thinking, I have the money and I could pay it back, but this would ruin me with all these other loans. I'm out. Economists use the term strategic default to describe this concept. Russia did something along these lines in 1998, Venezuela too. They had money coming in, just not enough to want to pay everything. So they chose their priorities. Often, domestic obligations takes precedence over foreign. Because when you make your own people angry, yikes, that can get messy fast. So, what do lenders do when a country defaults? They don't exactly come at you with bats, but there is pressure. Countries could end up in court, get sanctioned, or get excluded from international markets. Imagine Bob got excluded from every store in town. He is not in jail, but he is on the do not lend to list. Sometimes lenders are willing to modify the debt. In more common language, we may say, okay, Bob, we will agree to lower your payments, maybe extend the time. Just promise us something. Countries negotiate new terms, make arrangements, or even more, just ask for partial forgiveness of the debt. That is called a haircut. Sounds nice, but for investors, it's more like being scalped. Now, here is where it gets even weirder. Sometimes, amidst pure chaos, countries recover relatively fast. Take Argentina again. It defaulted in 2001, and then things were ugly for a while. Yet within years, it emerged successful once again. Even Greece's historically awful crisis appeared slow, but it eventually emerged back onto the global stage. How? Because, ironically, after default, countries can then afford to buy more stuff. Come again? Yep. If you're not going to make payments on billions of dollars of debt, that is money that can be spent and invested back home. On wages, education, something health-related, food subsidies, anything. It's like Bob finally being able to pay rent when he stopped paying for 6 credit cards. But, big but, this only works if the government uses that breathing room effectively. Also, on a gentler level, the public does not always get a break. Default often means austerity measures, lowering public spending levels, freezing wages, and raising taxes. It's like Bob deciding to eat only ramen and cancel his streaming account to show the bank he is serious about not making debt payments. Does the debt need to happen? Probably. Is that popular? Not a chance. In some situations, when leaders resign or get forced out, defaults lead to something bigger, huge social movements. It's not just money, it's trust. And rebuilding that trust takes time. Years, maybe decades. Eventually, though, when a country reforms, stabilizes, and proves themselves to be responsible, investors start coming back, like Bob getting a secure credit card and rebuilding his score, slowly, painfully, but surely. Now let's turn this one more. What happens if they print a ton of dollars? You guessed it, inflation. Or, even worse, hyperinflation. So, it is not a fix per se, it is a dangerous tool if mismanaged. Nevertheless, having your own currency, a reputable central bank, and a history of paying your bills gives you the best edge in the global economy. That is what allows countries like Japan or the UK to have extensive debt loads without panic. They command investors' trust. Now, imagine he learned his lesson. He now has a budget and emergency fund, has also begun saving and investing on the side. Others start to trust him again. Retailers open their doors. He is no longer the financial disaster of the town. Currencies can also do this too, but only if they attack the root of the problem. Corruption, weak institutions, lousy fiscal policy, and excessive reliance on foreign loans. So, when a country defaults, it's like the ultimate "we're broke" announcement to the world. But the consequences go far beyond just unpaid bills. It affects global markets, investor confidence, and the everyday lives of citizens who didn't sign the loan papers but still pay the price. Some defaults are caused by bad luck, others by bad choices. Either way, it's a messy, painful reset button that takes time, trust, and smart policy to recover from. If you want me to make other videos explaining these topics, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.